my best to keep people out of the camera, because I know it's like I find it very rude to put people in a camera if they didn't ask for it. So, right, video title, undiagnosed autism, question mark. And I was in a different headspace back when I was putting these in my notes. So I feel like I do probably have undiagnosed autism. I've always felt very different growing up. I've always felt, as a kid, I think I felt normal for the most part, but kids basically act autistic. But once I hit puberty and everyone else around me hit puberty, I felt almost immediately alienated from everyone around me, completely isolated. And at the time, I didn't really have words to put how I felt. I just always felt like something is wrong with me. You know, everyone else seems to just have life figured out. Like nobody told them anything, but me, I just feel like I feel like I was just like an alien. I've always described it. I remember back in the day, I described it as, I feel like I'm standing by the side of the road watching everyone else drive right by me. I've learned ever since then how to mask. I didn't seek out a diagnosis, or the word autism or Asperger's or anything didn't really reach me until I was around 25. Like before that, I kind of heard it here and there. You know, South Park has that joke like, oh, I have Asperger's head, like Cartman said. But I never knew what that meant. I thought it was kind of like Tourette's or something. I'm like, I don't have anything like that. I went to therapy around 25 years old, and that's when I heard the therapist say, like, you might be on the spectrum, you might have high functioning autism. And I did research on that ever since. And the more I look into it, the more it makes sense to me. Even here, I feel completely out of place. I feel comfortable enough to be here. You know, I feel like I blend in pretty well, but if I try to have a conversation with someone, or someone talks to me, I feel like they're gonna be able to figure it out pretty quickly, because I am, yeah, you know, even when I watch back these videos, when I'm editing these videos, I can see all the traits, and I'm like, it just seems so obvious. So let's see. I have before I just start rambling. One of my biggest symptoms, I guess, is I always felt that the world was just so noisy. It always feels like everything is just so loud, so sharply loud. You know, at school, everyone's always snapping and whistling at each other and screaming. You know, everybody wants attention. At parties, just everybody dancing, screaming, loud music, honking horns, you know. I've learned, when I was younger, I didn't know why I was always overwhelmed. You know, but now I kind of now that I'm aware of it, I can see why. Like everything just happens sounds is just so grating to me. I prefer something, not complete silence. I don't want to be trapped in like a sensory deprivation chamber or anything like that. But though I wish things were a little more muted, you know, just for me. That's a selfish thing for me. Growing up, if you're autistic, I feel like you're like bully bait. You know, people, it kind of colors how I view the world and why I'm so pessimistic and maybe misanthropic. Because growing up, most people, I've noticed that they just can't help but like pick on something that's different. Or if they feel like they can get away with disrespecting, they disrespect each other just by default. And then somehow they're still friends with each other. I don't know how that works with them. People just do it. Well, at least that's the friendships that I've seen. But if you're being autistic, you're almost like naive. You just speak directly, whereas I feel like most neurotypical people tend to just speak around the subject. They don't tell you directly. Everything always has like 2 or 3 meanings. You have to read between the lines. And I feel like they picked up that I was like, they kind of sense that they could talk around me. But the issue with that is like it works until people get so comfortable that it becomes obvious. And then even I notice it. You know, at some point it becomes noticeable. But by then the norm has already been set. The norm is already, this person here is the punching bag. That's the doormat. And it's almost impossible to step out of that, because now you're disrupting like the group dynamic. You know, it's already set in stone almost. You know, that's not your place. And group, I feel like when it comes to groups and cliques and whatever friend groups, they have their own hierarchy. And once it's already set, it's like you're shaking up the whole foundation. You know, it's like removing Jenga pieces from a Jenga tower. That's been my experience with a lot of friend groups growing up. You know, I've never had more than one good friend. I had one very good friend back when I was like 10. We were best friends, man. I remember I've known this kid from when I was like 9 up until I was like 14, I think, and then I moved. We were like hanging out every day, you know, but we would go to parties or anything like that, like a quinceañera or a baptism or just a regular get together. As soon as there were other dudes around our age where there was a group, all of a sudden he doesn't know me. I embarrass him now. Same thing with my cousin. You know, he's around the other group of other cousins, all of a sudden they don't know me. I'm the loser, you know. I never understood that. I took it very personally, but these days I think that I choose to just like have kind of take it in stride, like shrug it off, because I try not to have like a chip on my shoulder. I mask every day. I've been having a full-time job since I was like 29, 28. Before 29, 28, jobs, I was just a social recluse. I couldn't leave my room. I was like socially anxious. The world was overwhelming, you know. I was already thoroughly traumatized from like high school and middle school especially. And I was just one of these neats, you know. I was in and out of college, university, and I hated that I could never just stay, because the world seemed so easy for everyone else except me. Like, why couldn't I be the one that can, you know, hold it down a job and go to school and make friends? And looking back now, I was just always just like overwhelmed by everything. And I think in my early 20s, I just kind of gave up. Like, I just became a neat until I was like, and then I sought help when I was like 25, and that put me on the journey I am now. But even now that I understand more about like being on the spectrum and things that can overwhelm your senses and all these limits, I try to work around those limitations, and I've grown better at masking so that I can look more normal around the people, my coworkers and everything like that. Eventually they'll figure out that I'm off, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But masking after a day, it can be, it's work. You know, it feels like it's another job. You know, I've gotten good at it. Well, I've gotten decent at it. I don't know. Only the people I hear can tell me whether I'm good at it or not. But I feel like I've gotten better compared to when I was in my early 20s and teens. But it is agony. You know, it feels like you're planking all day, right? If you're planking, no matter how hard you train your abs, you could plank for 4 hours, right? I bet there's someone out there that knows how to do that, like what, Dave Goggins or something. But eventually you are gonna fatigue and you are gonna collapse, and that's what it feels like to mask. It's like you're planking all day, and if you don't have much, but it's a skill. It's a very important skill. Like masking is like an acting skill, and it's a very important acting skill, especially if you're on the spectrum, that I encourage all of you to do. When I do reach my limit, after masking, yesterday I hit my limit. Not yet, I think it was yesterday. I was 6 hours into my shift, and I was just surrounded by so many people. You know, like every person that I meet. This is another. I don't know if this is autism. Not. This is more like my CPTSD from growing up basically alone and abused. Not physically, just emotionally, and bullied and all that. Every person that I see, they're a wild card. They're an unknown factor, an unknown variable. You know, so a mini panic wells up automatically inside of me. And at work, I work in a warehouse. I work security. You know, and I'm walking around, and so many people walk by me. It's panic. every person that I meet, if I don't know them, it just panic. Well, so it suddenly sparks inside of me, and it activates a fight or flight. So you can imagine if I walk by 10 strangers, 20 strangers, it's gonna wear me down. You know, it's a lot of work. And it was one of those days that I finished my round, and then I walked outside, and I'm gonna patrol the parking lot, and I just paced. I found an empty corner, and just kind of, you know, collected myself, let the engine cool down a little bit. I was outside for like 10-15 minutes, and I was called back inside, but by then I felt more refreshed. You know, I had the energy to go back inside and mask. It was like taking a seat, you know, like a breather. Like if you're jogging and you just stop for like maybe 3 or 5 minutes, or a minute. So yeah, people in my experience are exhausting, unless I get to know them very well. If I know you very well, it basically means that I've adopted you as like as close to family to me. But it's very hard to trust anybody, because I feel like people's nature is to be deceptive. I don't think people are friends with anyone, in my view. I don't think people actually have friends. I think people just associate with each other and then the relationship is mostly transactional for the most part. You know, most relationships I think are just like acquaintances. I think most people are just designed to like use each other. And if you don't have anything to offer, then like you're not gonna get anything. I have a conclusion to this video. This video does have a structure. I just didn't want to say anything while people were playing frisbee next to me. I'm probably gonna cut that part out. I guess the last question is why to continue? Well, because while you're alive, there's possibility. You know, what makes you happy now, even if it's dumb, like chicken nuggets? If you're dead, you can't eat chicken nuggets, right? Robloxing yourself is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. You know, but while you're in the problem, you always think it's gonna last forever. I also just stay around out of spite. I refuse to let the world beat me down. You know, if it wants to take me out, it has to really work for it, first of all. You only really lose when you give up. And I think that's it. I think that's the end of this video. Yes, that's the end of this video. All right, later.